Hey everybody, welcome back. Today we're going to talk about prepping and dealing with long-term power outages before, during, and after they happen. Hey everybody, welcome back. So we're going to talk about getting ready for and dealing with long-term power outages. I know a lot of my folks that subscribe to me live in California, and you're dealing with this right now. And you're preparing to live in the dark for who knows how long, 3 to 5 days, maybe 48 hours. You never know because of the looming strong winds and the high fire danger. So PG&E's cut off homes and businesses in like 36 counties, I believe, for 48 hours or longer. So my theory is if you're preparing for a long-term power outage, you really got to think of how that power outage would affect you personally. So the first things we're going to think about is it will disrupt communications. Might disrupt your water, might disrupt transportation. It's also going to close retail businesses, grocery stores, gas stations, banks, ATMs. May cause food spoilage and water contamination. And it might prevent you from using medical devices. So given we know that, we got to think about how to stay safe when a power outage threatens you. So you really want to take an inventory of items that you need that rely on electricity. The first one we're going to start with is our electric garage door opener. If you got one of these in your house, you know what this is. You've seen it before. So I'm just going to hold the camera up here and show it to you. You have a release right over here that you can snap if the power's out. You pull it down. Normally it comes with a string. I tell people to take that string off because you can go up along here and pull it and a burglar can get in your house. Actually, the string is up there. But as a general rule, that's the easy way to open them. I tell people, you don't know how strong you're going to be. You don't know if you've done this before. You don't know how hard it is to do it. Get your car, while the power's on, out of your garage, take it outside, close it with the power on, and leave it out there. You may be able to pop it and do it. Now, I also have solar in here, so I can run this on solar. I have my backup solar power, which is located over there. So that will run that. That'll open that up. But that's the first order of business. You want to get this garage door popped, your car outside, and in front or in your driveway. All right, so back on the table here. Sorry for moving you around like that. I know the camera has image stabilization in it now, but I hate to do it off the tripod. Anyway, the first thing you're going to want to think about is get foods that you can cook that don't need to stay cold. In other words, non-perishable foods. An example over here, you've got soups. Some canned chicken, potatoes, Chef Boyardee, whatever. We've been through that 1,000 times, so you kind of know what kind of items to get. You want to have a stock of that, so you don't have to worry about that. That's non-perishable food. Next up, good old cash. This happens to be $100 that I have stashed away for emergencies that I carry in my vehicle around my person at all times. You want to have cash because ATMs may not work. Your local grocery store may be only taking cash. That's it. If you have to run out and get something that you forgot, and trust me, we all forget something, you'll want cash. Next up, talk to your medical provider about a power outage if you rely on medical devices. Basically, any kind of refrigerated medicines, anything like that. Find out how long the medication can be stored at higher temperatures and get specific guidance for medications that are critical for life. Also, get yourself a first aid kit. This is my little roll-up first aid kit. I hope that's in screen. This is my first aid roll-up kit. Make sure you have a good first aid kit so you don't have to run to urgent care for the slightest little injury or anything like that. At times like this, it may be overloaded. It may be super, super busy. And that's not something you want to get into at the moment. So, let's move on to the next item if I can keep this flashlight standing up. Next up, batteries and alternatives to meet your needs when the power goes out. I have 3 items here. Got batteries, and again, all the stuff is representation. This isn't all the batteries I have stored. This isn't the brand I'm telling you to buy. Just a representation. I have a little battery bank here that has a little solar panel on it. Solar panel will take forever to charge it, but you get the idea. It works pretty well. I also have a solar panel that can charge up your phone. This is a 20-watt solar panel. This can charge up your cell phone or any other devices you might need that run off of USB. So you definitely want to get that stuff set up and running. Next up, water. Store water. Again, this is nowhere near enough. You need 1 gallon per person per day. But you get the idea. Okay? You want water, your treatment plants may stop working. If you're on a well, your well pumps may stop working. You definitely want to have water stored ahead of time before anything. Again, this is stuff you do before a power outage strikes, when you know it's coming. Next up, you want to sign up for local alerts and warning systems. Okay, you can monitor your weather radio, you can sign up with your local agency, whatever, your local town, city, for any kind of power outage alerts. I believe PG&E has a page on that, a whole entire page on power alerts and letting you know what areas are going out, what areas are staying powered up. Also, this is where, if you live in an area where the scanner is not encrypted, a scanner is very, very, very handy. You definitely want to get yourself a police scanner so you can listen into what's going on around you. And this is also where ham radio comes into play, because communications are going to be cut down. You want some way to communicate out, and of course you have to get your license first. But ham radio comes into play there too, because even if you don't have your license and all you have is a cheap $20 Baofeng, you can listen. You don't have to talk, you can listen and hear what's going on. So let's move on to the next one. Now, camp stoves to cook. Here's a little representation of one. Of course, you'd probably use a bigger one if you have a family. I have like 3 different Coleman stoves that I'd probably have out on my counter. If you're going to do that, install a carbon monoxide detector with a battery backup in a central location in your home where you'll be cooking. I have 2 or 3 of them around the house just to make sure you're not getting too much carbon monoxide inside your house, and do it in an area that's well ventilated. Next up, you want to determine how long your home phone will work if you have a landline. Now, home phone, landline phones generally will work for quite a bit of time after a power outage. They usually are powered by very huge batteries at some head end, and it's very low current. There used to be an item you could plug in to the phone line to actually use the electricity from it. And it only powered very small items. It wasn't going to power like your house lights or anything like that. But it would recharge your cell phone. It converted I think it's 5 volts in the phone lines. If anybody worked on the phone lines, you can let me know. It converted the electricity to the right voltage for recharging. But determine how long they're going to work. If they run off huge batteries, they may last a good long time, but with today's computer-controlled routing systems and lines, your home phones could be down as well. That's where ham radio comes into play. Now, the next up is going to be flashlights with extra batteries for every household member. I have these O-lights here. You have nice big flashlights. Headlamps come into play here. Make sure you have batteries or they're charged up. This one takes AA's. This one charges up and also takes rechargeables if you want to do that way. So make sure you have your lighting set up and a way to go with it. You also want to make sure that you have like any kind of lanterns. And again, these are much safer to use indoors. These are electric lanterns. Real simple. If you're stuck in a pinch and this is all you have, it will work. Just make sure, again, you have ventilation. These run on Coleman camp gas, this stuff here. The old Coleman lanterns with the mantles. Make sure you have it in a safe place where no one's going to touch it. This gets very, very, very hot on top. And the glass can break, so it's a little bit safer to use LED inside. So let's move on to the next thing. Now, conventional wisdom, they always say to put a thermometer inside your refrigerator. I'm going to tell you a little different because I worked in the food service industry for a long, long time, years and years ago, and this was my best friend. This is a little portable thermometer. You can stick this into items, you can get the temperature. They say anything refrigerated that gets over 40 degrees needs to be thrown out. Sometimes that's true, sometimes that's not, depending on if you're going to eat it right away. So if it's been down for 24 hours, and you go in there and you poke this into some hamburger meat and it's 39 degrees, I would suggest cooking that pretty quickly. But I wouldn't throw it out, Generally, if you keep your fridge door closed, you'll be good for about 24 hours. It will start to heat up in there a little bit, but you'll be okay. Now, the first thing, of course, you want to do is start cooking that stuff and getting it used up and eaten. All right, so last up, at least for what you can do beforehand, is to keep your mobile phones and your other electronic equipment, tablets, whatever, charged up. And that's where, again, these items come in handy. You can stick this solar charger out in the sun. If you have battery backup, if you have a solar power type system, you can charge up off that. Most inverters now that you can buy do have a USB plug in them. So that's kind of handy too. And almost everything I have, there's some USB plug in it. But I have a lantern that has a USB plug with 5,000 milliamp battery charger. So it's really not too bad. You also want to be able to top off, if you can safely, store some gasoline and top off your car. The biggest thing you can do really is to top off your car and make sure it's topped off. But if you can safely store gasoline where you live, if you live in a tiny little apartment on the 34th floor of a building, don't store gasoline. You really don't have a use for it. But if you have a generator or something like that, definitely. If you have a place to do it, store some gasoline for the generator, store some gasoline for your vehicle. You may need your vehicle later, and the pumps may be down for who knows how long. So, surviving during the power outage. Next up, we're going to keep the refrigerators and freezers cold, like I said. They'll usually keep the temperature for anywhere from 24 to 48 hours, depending on it. You can use ice if necessary, and you can monitor the temperatures again with a thermometer or a little regular thermometer you can buy and stick in there. Something else that's kind of handy, and this is an aside, I'm going to move you over to it, is to have an ice maker and to have a small, like a little college dorm fridge. So let me show you my stuff. Alright, so in front of you, you're going to see that on top, that's an ice maker that will run off of my solar power backup system that way. It doesn't take a ton of power, it makes ice very quickly, and you can get a nice big bunch of ice out of that in a very short amount of time. Within 2 hours, you can have a couple of bags full of ice that can keep your freezer and stuff cold. The other thing on the bottom is just a cheap little dorm fridge. Both of those, somebody gave me both of those. I was really thankful because I didn't have to spend money on it. They gave them to me a few years ago, and the fridge was already kind of beat up, and so it doesn't matter. It just lives out here. I just keep water in it for now. But if I have, say, some expensive cuts of meats or whatever that I just bought and I don't want to eat right away, I can toss them in there. Again, run it off of solar power. And that's kind of a backup system. Now remember, these aren't required. This is not something you have to do. This is just a nice thing to add on to your preps already. You can also just buy a 12-volt cooler like you'd use in your car while you're tailgating or something. So again, if you have medications that need to be refrigerated, like say insulin or something, having something like that, really handy. Let's get back to the table. Something I did forget to mention in preparing for the power outage is make sure you have enough fuels. Butane, get white gas, propane, isobutane, whatever you're going to use to cook, whatever you're going to use to power your heating devices if you need to heat. Make sure you've got that already set up ahead of time. Now, next up, you want to avoid carbon monoxide poisoning. We talked about this. You want to keep your generators, if you're running them, at least 20 feet away from any open windows. Propane gas stoves, you have ventilation, and you have a safe place to use them in your house. Like my house, my kitchen, very high ceilings. I have a door right there to my back screened-in patio. I can leave it open. I got lots of ventilation, lots of cross ventilation. If it's going to be freezing cold out or really windy or in the middle of a hurricane and you live in a very small, say, small little studio apartment, not the best idea. If you can crack a window open and get some ventilation and a fan going, a little bit safer. So you can use propane and stuff like that to cook on inside with caution. You don't want to lock up your house all tight and then start pumping out, 4 or 5 propane gas ovens. You never want to use a gas stovetop or oven to heat your home. That could really lead to problems. You want to check on your neighbors during the event. Older adults and young children especially, they can be vulnerable to extreme temperatures. You may have an older neighbor next door that relies on some kind of medical device. If you've got power, if you've got a way to help them, maybe you can help them out. It's a good way to kind of network during a disaster. If worse comes to worse, okay, and if the cold is just too much for you, or you need electricity, and your oxygen generator, whatever kind of electrical device you use, if you need that electricity, go to a community location with power. If it's just too much for you, I don't want to tell people to tough it out at home and be the hardcore survivor and have them die. If you really feel like you need to go somewhere, and don't let false bravado take over. Get yourself some help. So let's move on. So now let's talk about after, okay? The power's back on, and you want to see what's the damage outside, if there was a weather event, whatever. The first thing you want to do, and you want to remember this while the power is going off, is to unplug everything. So when the power comes back on, it's not a huge spike. I don't know that it will damage your own personal stuff. Some things, some sensitive electronics might be, but generally, I don't worry about that for that. Also because the spike like that can cause another outage at your head end, at wherever you're getting your electricity from. If everybody leaves everything on in their house and forgets to turn it off when the power comes back, that's one heck of a voltage spike. So you want to help everybody out, turn everything off, make sure everything's shut down, and you're safe. Now, after. When in doubt, throw it out. That's my motto for food. If something looks funky, if something smells funky, if you open your refrigerator refrigerator or your freezer and it stinks, toss the food. Yeah, it's expensive. Yeah, it stinks, but it's better than poisoning yourself or really hurting yourself. It's just safer. If the power's out for more than a day and you have medication that needs to be refrigerated, unless the drug label says otherwise, I'd probably give it a pitch, and unless it's life-saving stuff. If it's something you need to take and there's no doctor around, it might be worth the risk of taking it. But as a general rule, I'd pitch out stuff that might be bad. You can always talk to your doctor ahead of time and see if you can get a little extra. And maybe like I showed you, my little freezer over there, you can pick something up like that. They even make little small ones, like about this big. Look like little, they're about the size of that gas can over there. And they have a little door on them, and you can stick that in, and they run off 12 volts. So you can have a way to store your medication safely. But if it looks funky, if it's bad, toss it out. It's better to be safe than sorry. And check on neighbors again. Make sure everybody's safe. Make sure your house is okay. Did you have a big weather event? Is part of your house missing? If the window's broken, whatever. Make sure your streets are clear. If you have lawn furniture. I know this is because of high winds. They're doing this in California. If stuff's blown out in the streets, you may want to clear it out. Basically, you just want to walk around and make sure everything is intact and everything's okay. And you may want to start to put your stuff away too. Take care of it, clean it off, put it away. Now, if you have to evacuate, and this is kind of important, this is why I tell people have a bug-out bag. My idea of a bug-out bag, since I'm fairly remote here, is for situations like this. It's for, I have to run, there's a fire coming. It's not for, I have to run to the woods and survive because somebody in New York blew something up. That's not the mentality. I'm not a run for the hills type person because I don't have a bug-out location. This is my bug-out location, my home. So, in a worst case scenario, you've got your bag packed, ready to go, and you can leave. But a good idea is to always stay aware of your environment. This kind of fire grows really, really quickly with those high winds. So you want to know what's going on. You want to leave as soon as it's recommended. Generally, you can judge that for yourself. Sometimes areas will tend to over-recommend, but, say, leave, the fire is 50 miles away, You can kind of judge that for yourself. But as a general rule, you want to be the first one out. You don't want to be stuck in traffic with the fire coming up behind you. So that's generally it. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I tried to put together some things. It's not a be-all, end-all list by any means. And like I said, the stuff on here is really just representations of what I'd want with me. I'd probably want a whole lot more gas, a whole lot more water, different types of lanterns, a whole lot more food than that. But you get the idea. It's a representation. It shows you some ideas to get the synapses moving in your brain. Anyway, folks, I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to check out our links down below, our Amazon link as well. You can click that link. If there's nothing there that you like, you can shop as you normally would using that link, and it helps out the channel. Doesn't cost you anything. Don't forget to check out our Thrive Life. If you're interested in getting started out in some freeze-dried food, our link is right there. And don't forget to check out our Olight store. There's tons of interesting stuff in there. Lots of cool flashlights. Pretty much all I use. Anyway, folks, thanks for watching. Stay safe and stay prepared.